I met a gypsy.
And I mean, that's probably got a lot to do with you getting like that KTM support to race that first Supercross season. You know, like the fact that you were a good dude that somebody wanted to help out, like gave you that opportunity at 29, which is like way over the hill to do your first Supercross season.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about that now. Like when I was 29, I didn't even think about that. I was like, I'm racing Supercross, West Coast, can't wait. It's going to be sick. And
like,
now
bro,
I
you should be a team manager.
Right. And I learned a lot. Actually, Ryan Raglan went on to, you know, do a lot of cool things with Stay Sick. And, you know, he was always a smart human being, way smarter than where he was at KTM. And, you know, the old, you know, goes back to, you know, he comes back to me. He's like, hey, do you want to try something different this weekend? And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. And I rode this bike. I'm like, this bike's amazing. He's like, yeah, it's a big bore. You want to race it? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to race that. So that's what we did in 2004 at one of these Anaheims, and I ended up pulling whole shot and led for like half a heat race.
What bike was it?
Battling with Ramsey and dude. So it was a KTM 125, but it was bored out to like a 170. It was like a 170 kit.
How did that work with the rules?
So, well, they didn't know, right? I was a privateer, so no one's going to check me, right? Because I'm not finishing on the box. So I'm just like, hell yeah, let's do it, Rags. Like, I'm in, right? So I go we go to, it's Anaheim 3, 2004, and they had the split start. I pull whole shot in my heat race, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm leading. And well, before that, I was in practice, and DV was up there, you know, in the stands, and he was, when I was walking up to the stands after my practice, he was yelling, big bore. Like, he fucking knew I had a big bore because I was rolling insides and seat mounts and shit like no one else was doing in the 125 class.
And you're nobody.
So that's when they're like, oh my God, I'm nobody. Like, who the hell? Like, literally, I remember the announcers, Cameron Steele and whoever it was at the time, like, I was leading for almost a full lap, and they didn't even know who the fuck it was. They didn't even say my name. So I made the main, and then the next weekend, I think we were going to San Francisco or something, like, hey, we got to take that engine out. You can't ride that thing anymore because it's too obvious. So then I went back to a normal engine and did shitty.
Was there any fallout from that?
No, none, dude. Like, I think I got 19th in the main because I crashed, and then, you know, it was awesome for me, man. I was stoked. I was like, hey, I let it, I don't care what size engine I was on. I let a fucking heat race for 4 laps. Like, I was stoked, right?
That's so sick.
But, yeah, so we went back to a standard engine, which was still good, but, yeah, just quite didn't get the starts like I did with the other bike.
Dude, that's so funny. So you did the whole season of West Coast Lights that year then?
Yeah, I did West Coast, and then going in 2005, we were going to do a 250 team. Like 250 East and 125 West, and then that kind of fell apart. And so I just ended up doing some West Coast rounds, and then my mom ended up passing away in 2005. So I remember driving to Phoenix and did track walk, a road practice. And I remember calling my wife and just said, I'm just coming home. Like, I just said I wasn't into it. My mind wasn't into it, and just didn't race that whole rest of the Supercross series because I just, you know, wanted to get my shit correct. And then that's when I started going up to Canada. I rode for KTM Canada for like 3 years up there and riding their outdoor series. And then Andy White was the team manager at the time, and I kind of did that for 3 years, and never really returned to Supercross. I dabbled in it here and there, a jump in, jump out, but never a full series. So once again, just kind of how my whole story goes, it was like I had a chance to do something, I got to do it, and then the next year wasn't always the same year. It wasn't mapped out for me to do the same thing. Mom passed away, got another job, and too busy testing, or went up to Canada. So, yeah, so I stayed up in Canada for 3 years with Andy White and KTM, and just kind of did fairly good up there, top 10s a lot, got a 4th place, and just continued coming home. Like, it was so weird, Jay. So I was actually employed by Yamaha. I was a Yamaha employee. So when I was test riding for Rags at KTM about 2004, 2005, Yamaha offered me a job, and that's about the time when Heather got pregnant, and I was like, I got to get a real fucking job. Like, I'm going to have a family. And KTM wouldn't put me in-house, so I went to Yamaha as a test rider in-house. So while I was at Yamaha in-house, KTM said, hey, do you want to race, you know, our series up here in Canada. And I'm like, yeah, sign me up. I still would love to do it. But I had to figure out a way to make it happen, because back then you had to be there for Saturday practice and Sunday races. So what I did while I was an employee at Yamaha, I took my vacation days around my flight arrangement. So I would take a vacation day Friday, race Saturday, Sunday, fly home on Monday, and while I was working at Yamaha this whole time.
How did that go down with them in terms of like riding another bike? Did they obviously were cool with it?
For a little while, and then they caught more wind of it, and then back then they pulled me into HR, and they're like, hey, you're riding another brand of bike on the weekends? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, you can't do that. And I'm like, you guys aren't paying me on my own time. Yeah. You guys aren't giving me free bikes. Like, why can't I do what I want to do on my own time?
Yeah.
And it kind of stirred up some shit within Yamaha, and then they offered me like a little side deal. We're like, hey, we're going to give you X amount of bikes, but you got to ride these bikes on your own time. And after the KTM thing was done, that went down, and then I just took that deal, and then I never went back up to KTM, because I was at Yamaha for a little over 5.5 years, and I had to like make sure I didn't screw all that up, having a family and everything. So
right.
Just that kind of went away. But then, yeah.
That's
so it's so weird. Like for me, like my direction was never like just black and white. You hear all these racers, I raced a series, just didn't go well, and got a job with my friend at the the oil refinery, and then I came back to racing. Mine was always, I was like hustling. I was trying to do stuff. I was always wanting to be on a dirt bike. So no matter what, I was like working, racing, working, racing, working, racing. So it was always like that.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.